හරිම සුළුයි.
Tonight on First at 9 this Saturday the 23rd of March 2024. Blood and tears. Moscow drowns in blood as brutal terrorist attack claims the lives of 130 people. President Putin vows to punish those responsible. The health sector diagnosis. President highlights key issues in Sri Lanka's health sector. Calls on for a change in the concept of medicine. Explosive revelations. MP Kavinda Jayawardena lodges complaint with the CID to probe into the statements made by the former president. Public Security Minister orders IGP to conduct an immediate investigation. The Asian Connection. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena to visit China next week. Visit aims to deepen mutual political trust.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සොඩයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From Derana. This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Singha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Now taking you straight to your top story, a heinous crime perpetrated by a terrorist outfit drenched Russia in blood and tears last night as armed gunmen opened fire at civilians who had gathered into Caucus City Hall in Moscow. The gunfire explosions and the fire that ensued killed over 130 people and injured dozens more. The responsibility of the attack was later claimed by the Islamic State. Addressing the nation this evening, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia would observe a national day of mourning in the aftermath of the attack on Sunday, the 24th of March. He confirmed that the terrorists who perpetrated this attack were captured and that they will be punished. Last night in Russia, at least 5 gunmen clad in camouflaged outfits and armed with automatic weapons opened fire into Moscow's Caucus City Hall, where around 6,000 people were gathered for a Soviet-era rock band picnic. After a hail of bullets, the attackers also set off explosives within the city hall. A fire quickly spread through the concert hall with smoke filling the building while screaming visitors rushed to emergency exits. After setting the hall on fire, the perpetrators of the attack fled the scene in a white car. This brutal attack claimed the lives of 133 people while Russia's health ministry confirmed that dozens more are in serious condition. Search operations are still underway to rescue victims trapped in the rubble. Following the attack, the Islamic State claimed responsibility on its Telegram channel, saying its gunmen attacked a large gathering in Moscow's outskirts and escaped safely. Against this backdrop, the White House said it had received intel about a planned terrorist attack in Moscow earlier this month, potentially targeting a large gathering to include concerts, and passed on the information to Moscow. The US National Security Council stated it did so as part of its duty to warn policy, through which the US alerts nations or groups when it receives intelligence of specific threats to kidnap or kill multiple victims.
We've all seen the reports and the video coming out of Moscow. The images are just horrible and just hard to watch, and our thoughts obviously are going to be with the victims of this terrible, terrible shooting attack. The State Department or embassy there put out a notice to all Americans in Moscow to avoid any large gathering.
A Russian security source, however, has told Russia's RIA Novosti news agency that Russia received an intelligence warning from the US about potential attacks in Moscow, but the information did not contain specifics. Hours after the attack, Russian authorities arrested 11 people in connection with the attack, including 4 directly involved. Russia's Federal Security Service said the perpetrators of the attack on Moscow's concert hall were en route to the border with Ukraine when they were apprehended. The FSB added that the suspects had contacts within Ukraine. However, Ukraine's presidential advisor reacting to the Moscow attack said Ukraine had absolutely nothing to do with those events. In the aftermath of the vicious attack, All public events in Moscow have been cancelled this weekend, while the city's 4 main airports have been put on the highest alert. Addressing the nation this evening, Russian President Vladimir Putin says in his national address that the attack on Moscow's Crocus City Hall was a barbaric terrorist attack, adding that Russia would observe a national day of mourning in its aftermath on Sunday, the 24th of March.
Обращаюсь к вам в связи с кровавым, варварским террористическим актом.
I'm addressing you with regard to a bloody, barbaric terror act that killed dozens of peaceful people who were not guilty of anything, our fellow citizens, including children, teenagers, women. Now we must focus on not letting those behind this bloodbath to commit new crimes. Regarding the investigation of this crime and results of operational search actions, I can now say the following. All 4 of the actual perpetrators of the terrorist act, all those who shot and killed people, were found and detained. They tried to hide and were moving towards Ukraine. There, according to the preliminary investigations, they had a border crossing prepared from the Ukrainian side. Overall, 11 people were detained. It is already obvious that we faced not just a cynically planned act of terror, but a premeditated mass killing of unarmed people. The criminals had set a goal of killing, shooting our citizens on sight in cold blood.
Meanwhile, issuing a statement, Sri Lanka has strongly condemned the dastardly terrorist attack which occurred at the Crocus City Hall in Moscow. The Foreign Ministry stated that such cowardly acts of violence against civilians are abhorrent and have no place in civilized society.
New Dulux Pentolite Hygiene Plus. Refreshing walls for generations.
And now bringing you back home, President Ranil Wickremesinghe touched upon a pressing concern affecting Sri Lanka's healthcare sector and revealed that approximately 30 to 40% of doctors and nurses emigrate from the country after receiving local tertiary education and training. Speaking at an event yesterday, President Wickremesinghe added that the National School of Business Management, widely known as the NSBM, has been granted the authorization to operate a teaching hospital, while Lyceum campus too has expressed similar interest. Meanwhile, expressing views on Sri Lanka's healthcare system, Dutch Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Bonnie Horbach, revealed several concerns affecting the local health infrastructure and emphasized the pivotal role that hospitals play in economic recovery, particularly in the country's north.
The inauguration ceremony of the Accident and Emergency Care Unit of the Point Pedro Base Hospital was held yesterday under the patronage of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. The facility was constructed as part of the Dutch government's development-related infrastructure investment vehicle relief loan scheme.
I must thank the Dutch government for this facility which has been gifted, because you are shifting it out of Jaffna into Point Pedro. But now we have to think even of our own health system. The whole profile of disease have changed. The birth rate has reduced. We have larger number of older patients to look after them. Then the different types of illnesses that are coming in. For instance, diabetes, for instance, cancer, many of the others. Then you have these pandemics like COVID. We can't run on one which was based on tropical medicine for tropical diseases. We have to think far more. What is the future going to be? For instance, for every person we train as a doctor or a nurse, for every 100, I think about 30 or 40 leave the country. It's alarming. Only on Monday I asked the Kotalavala Defence Academy and its hospital to increase the intake even up to about 200 or 300, just to meet up with this need. We have given the NSBM the right to run teaching hospital, and Lyceum also has been asked, will also get the right to run a teaching hospital. Secondly, we have to change the whole concept of medicine. We can't do it ad hoc. Today, technology means it's more expensive equipment. How are you dealing with it? With AI coming in, how does it change the whole medical system? And then where are we going to find the money? With the IMF, we have come to an agreement. So unless we develop rapidly, we'll run short of money. So these are some of the issues, and the government will go into it. What is the health service? How do we do it? Do we have national insurance? Do you have some other system? Do you look at how Scandinavia is financing its system? So these are important issues that we will have to take up.
Improving public infrastructure in the northern province is of paramount importance. Though since 2009, progress has been made in restoring roads and airports, schools, as well as health infrastructure, there are still challenges to be met. But the conflict, immigration, and a narrow economic base base continue to have a huge impact. On top of that, the population of the northern province have specific needs, specifically in the area of mental health care, emergency care, women's care, and rehabilitation of war victims. It is understood that better health services will help expand the opportunities to a better and economically more productive life for the people living in the northern province. Therefore, hospitals are also an important part of the economic recovery of the north.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry yesterday announced that Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena is expected to embark on an official visit to China from the 25th to the 30th of March, accepting an invitation extended by the Chinese Premier. During Prime Minister Gunawardena's official visit, he is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, Premier Li Qiang, and Chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress. In addition, the meeting aims to focus on further deepening of bilateral relations, strengthening mutual political trust, expanding practical cooperation, and international and regional issues of common interest. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson added that the two countries will seek to expand exchange and cooperation in various fields, including high-quality belt and road cooperation, and strive for new progress in the strategic cooperative partnership featuring sincere mutual assistance and everlasting friendship. Now in other news, Minister of Public Security Derana English has ordered IGP Deshabandhu Tennakon to conduct an immediate investigation into the recent controversial revelations made by former President Maithripala Sirisena on the Easter Sunday attacks. Samagga Jana Balawegaya parliamentarian Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena meanwhile lodged a complaint with the CID today seeking an expeditious investigation into the former president's controversial remarks and called on him to be arrested.
Former President and Chairman of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, Maithripala Sirisena, who addressed media during his visit to Kandy, revealed that he knows the mastermind of the Easter Sunday attacks, which occurred on the 21st of April 2019, claiming the lives of 269 people.
Later, the Easter Sunday attacks happened. I know who planned it. All the terrorists who are being tried before the trial at Banau were apprehended during my tenure. However, the mastermind behind the attack has not been revealed yet. I know who executed the attacks. If the court orders to make a statement with this regard, I am ready to do so. However, the judges are responsible to maintain the confidentiality of my statement. Consequent to the former president's controversial remarks, parliamentarian of the Samagga Jana Balawegaya Dr. Kavinda Jayawardena lodged a complaint at the CID today. All of a sudden, Maithripala Sirisena claims that he knows the mastermind behind the Easter Sunday attacks. This is not a matter that the judiciary should keep in confidence since many innocent lives were lost that day. Arrest Maithripala Sirisena and conduct these investigations. We request the President to conduct an unbiased investigation. Arrest Maithripala Sirisena immediately and reveal that information to the public. Meanwhile, the Colombo Archdiocese also called for the arrest of former President Maithripala Sirisena. It will be 5 years since the Easter Sunday attacks by next month. By making such statements, we feel that the former president is trying to stage a political play on the graves of the victims of the Easter Sunday attacks. He made a very serious statement. We request Derana English to arrest and interrogate Maithripala Sirisena since he says he possesses crucial information. However, the former president, who addressed media once again, reiterated that he is ready to make a confidential statement. I made that statement yesterday based on information I received on the Easter Sunday attack about 3 weeks back. If I'm summoned to court, I'm willing to provide a confidential statement. I want to make a confidential statement since I'm concerned that my life and my family's life will be at risk if I make a statement in open court. The statement I'm willing to make is devoid of politics. It will be an honest statement. Following these developments, Minister of Public Security Derana English has ordered Inspector General of Police Deshabandhu Tennakon to conduct an immediate investigation into the recent statement by former President Maithripala Sirisena on the Easter Sunday bomb attacks.
Now, a majority of the senior management and professionals of the CBSL made a collective decision to consider a revision to their salaries. In a statement, the central bank said the decision was communicated to the Committee on Public Finance on the 16th of March prior to and independent of the recommendations made by the committee. The recent salary revision for the period of 2024-2026 made by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka post the collective agreement between the governing board and the employee representatives created much discourse among the public. Now in your political news, leader of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya, Sajith Premadasa, stated that an SJB-led government will establish a separate presidential task force for women. The opposition leader went on to say that under his government's relief program, focus will be directed at providing relief to housewives. In the meantime, parliamentarian of the SJB, Gayantha Karunatilaka, stated that Sajith Premadasa will be attentive to women's issues and will strive to provide relevant solutions accordingly.
The Galle District Women's Convention of the Samagi Jana Balawegaya was held this evening under the patronage of opposition leader Sajith Premadasa.
Sajith Premadasa will raise his voice for the betterment of women. He understands issues faced by women and he possesses solutions for such issues.
Our children as well as our women are not protected. I request the Women and Child Bureau to be established as a separate entity with police powers. Certain people say prostitution must be legalized.
Keep
in mind that Sajith Premadasa was the only candidate during the 2019 presidential election who established a separate women's declaration which was used to arrive at a social agreement with the female generation. I state that we will provide relief to housewives through the relief programs under our future government. We will establish a separate presidential task force for women.
Now in other local news, a SLTB bus travelling to Mathura this morning was severely damaged after veering off the road and hitting a wall. Meanwhile, 2 persons with methamphetamine in possession were arrested by the Colombo Crimes Division today. With that, here's a look at more news across the island in brief.
An SLTB bus travelling from Colombo to Mathura this morning was severely damaged in an accident. The bus, which was travelling at a high speed, veered off the road and hit a wall in Pohaduramulla area in Wadua. In the meantime, 2 persons with methamphetamine in their possession were arrested by the Colombo Crime Division today. According to police, the seized narcotics was estimated to be over 20 million rupees. Further, the suspects were apprehended at the Sirisara Uyana flats in Dematagoda. A joint operation conducted by the Navy and Police STF in Kilinochi last evening led to the arrest of a suspect and the seizure of over 7 kilograms of Kerala cannabis in his possession. During the operation, the suspect and the 4 parcels containing about 7 kilograms and 25 grams of Kerala cannabis were taken into custody. The gross street value of the seized Kerala cannabis is believed to be over 2 million rupees. The Sri Lanka Customs Narcotics Control Unit arrested a Venezuelan national along with a stock of capsules suspected to contain cocaine at the Bandaranaike International Airport this morning. The 41-year-old who arrived in Sri Lanka from Brazil via Dubai will be handed over to the Police Narcotics Bureau for onward legal action.
Welcome back. Now in other local news, the director of the country officers in Sri Lanka and the Maldives of the International Labour Organization, Johnny Simpson, stated that long-term care service and universal childcare investments in Sri Lanka could generate over 876,000 new jobs within the field by 2035, adding that majority of those job opportunities will be given to women. In the meantime, Chief of National Intelligence Major General Ruwan Kulatunga stated that the formulated National Strategic Action Plan to monitor and combat human trafficking from 2021 to 2025 underscores Sri Lanka's commitment to collaborate with government, non-government, regional as well as international stakeholders to effectively serve the purpose of the action plan.
The International Organization for Migration, in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, launched a 12-month project named Uplift with financial support from the government of Japan. The $2.6 million project will contribute towards the sustainable socio-economic reintegration and enhancing of skills and livelihood of returnees, aspirant migrant workers, as well as victims of human trafficking. The project is a successive initiative of the previously implemented project by IOM, ILO and Japan to promote the economic recovery and growth of Sri Lanka.
I'm pleased to note that this project intervention has a strong focus on promoting women in priority sectors that were mentioned, such as care, maritime, and tourism sectors, which are primary sources of employment for women, both in Sri Lanka and abroad. The long-term care service and universal child care investments in Sri Lanka could generate more than 876,000 new jobs by 2035, and the majority of these formal jobs would go to women. So this could contribute strongly to increasing women's labour force participation.
National Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force has formulated the National Strategic Action Plan to monitor and combat human trafficking for year 2021 into 2025. This comprehensive strategy underscores our commitment to collaborate with both government and non-government stakeholders, as well as regional and international bodies, to effectively combat trafficking in persons.
As you may be aware, the Ministry of Labour and Foreign Employment recently adopted the National Policy and Action Plan on Migration for Employment in Sri Lanka 2023 to 2027. This is the testament of commitment to addressing the complex and multifaceted challenges and opportunities presented by labour migration in our nation.
Our contribution to this program is $2.6 million. So Japanese yen and rupee, you already know, but it's $2.6 million, which is limited, but we are hoping that this will be a start of a very meaningful project that will help Sri Lanka develop in this very difficult situation. And we all know that the foreign remittance is a very major part of foreign currency earning in this country. And in this time of economic uncertainty and difficulties in this country, to assist such efforts would be vital. And the Japanese government is firm in standing beside Sri Lanka to do whatever resources to be of any help.
I am extremely delighted to note that the new National Policy and Action Plan on Migration for Employment has very clearly identified gaps, and the government is very seriously looking at the implementation of that. That is when we can really achieve safe, orderly and regular migration for every Sri Lankan who leaves this country in search of employment or a better option for their health or livelihood or education, whatever reason they want to migrate.
Now, as Sri Lanka gradually exposes itself more and more to the global economy in the aftermath of the economic crisis, leader of the Maubima Janata Party, Dilip Jayawira, claims that a transparent, participatory and dynamic national policy is required to leverage strategic advantages when negotiating free trade agreements. Speaking recently at a discussion themed Empowering Sri Lanka's Future, Navigating Through Entrepreneurial Collaborations organized by professionals for an entrepreneurial state, Jayawira went on to highlight that an entrepreneurial nation can ward off geopolitical pressure exerted by the more powerful nations of the world. Joining the discussion at the same event, Professor Priyanga Dunasinghe of the Colombo University emphasized that closing off gates and limiting access to opportunities are far more detrimental to the national economy than any benefit reaped by imposing such restrictions.
Professionals are objecting to this proposed Sri Lanka-India free trade agreement. But I'm sure you may have a different opinion as an entrepreneur.
India can export anything to this country. We don't have restriction. But India has put in a restriction where we only can import about 8 million pieces of garments into the country. That is absolutely a very, very small amount, because that amount can be only taken in by the couple of big companies in this country. When that happens, smaller entities does not have any ability or any way of getting into the Indian market. So that becomes a huge disadvantage for us. So what they have done is they are totally protected their industry and they have only given us a small revenue. So that revenue of 8 million pieces only would be within this substance amount what they are requesting. Now with the FTA with even Thailand, it is the same scenario because Thailand is also a huge manufacturing industry with garment industry. So this will become a dumping point. Even China, all these agreements are good, but it has to work. You know, both parties have to have the same sort of exposure. If they are importing, we'll say for example 200 million USD into the country, we also should have the same ability of sending back. But that is never the case. The government does not believe in equality. How we sign the agreement should be looked into. This is where things have gone wrong with this country, and that is what keep going wrong.
To talk about agreements, it's actually very positive to have trade agreements for a country. But how much that we can get into our country as an advantage is what we have to look at. So what we propose is that country should have a policy. That policy should be very transparent. Should be participatory. It should be dynamic. Thereby, the nation can benefit.
We need to integrate as a country with the world economy, not just in terms of the goods sector but also services. Those of us who after this facing this crisis, most of our workers go abroad for working abroad. Now say that they close the door, where we go? If they close door, then we are not able to move to such places. So closing gates is not certainly the way forward. That we need to understand in this globalized world. Okay, we ask to close gates because we want to simply protect our market, our demand for our services. So by doing so, I think we do a bigger harm than any benefit to the economy. So I think this we need to understand well.
We can't look at our country as a single entity. There will always be influences from other countries, big powers. How are you planning to face such threats?
So the moment if you build this kind of nation with such entrepreneurially driven nation, motivated people, and people are together towards a shared dream, and it is not very easy for anyone to come and put pressure on a country whether big or small. So it is not the size of a nation, it is not the size of a country, it is the power of the people, how much powerful these people are.
Now let's take a look at the corporate news segment for the evening.
Luminex plc, in collaboration with Puritas Private Limited, signed a contract recently formalizing the initiation of a project implemented by the Ministry of Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development. The project, titled the Mallavi Urban Water Supply Scheme in the Mullaitivu district, seeks to improve water supply and sanitation in the Mullaitivu district and is expected to be completed by the 30th of June 2025. The project is indicative of the continued efforts by the company to expand business operations and further establish the company as a key player in water supply projects. Lanka plc recently released the dealings made by a director of the company. Accordingly, Riaz Sangani, managing director of the company, purchased a total of 10,589 voting shares at ₹6.80 per share on the 21st of March. The relevant transaction was notified to the board of directors on the 22nd of March following the date of transaction. In other corporate news, Union Bank plc announced the appointment of a director to the company. Accordingly, Dinesh Veerakudi was appointed as an independent non-executive director of the company with effect from the 1st of April this year. In its corporate disclosure, the company added that the director does not hold any shares of the bank as of date.
And with that, we wrap up tonight's edition of Ada Derana First at 9. Stay in touch with us on www.adaderana.lk for the latest developments around the clock. Thank you. Have a great night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit adaderana.lk.